everybody. Another dog presentation. I'm sure you're loving them. My group decided to look into the pros and cons of adopting a dog from a shelter versus buying one from a breeder. And then the pros of buying from a breeder. First and foremost, this is my dog Bella. She is a purebred Cane Corso. We bought her about 6 years ago. From the breeder, and before we did that, we did a lot of research into what went into getting a new dog, so that's where a lot of my information came from in regards to the pros of buying from a breeder. And those include having expert advice from the breeder pretty much whenever you need it, as well as understanding the health history of the puppy, and the puppy is moldable to what you want it to be when it grows up. And starting from the expert advice from the breeder, that just stems from the breeder, a reputable one, doesn't want a dog to go to someone who isn't going to be able to take care of it properly. So if you are going to that reputable breeder, they're trying to make sure the temperament and the personality of the dog is fitting to your needs and wants, as well as the puppy's needs and wants. I know, for example, with our dog, she was a very rambunctious puppy, and it was going on for quite a while, so we did reach out to the breeder and say, hey, like, is this normal? Like, is there anything we could do to maybe curb her enthusiasm? He was like, no, it's just a time thing. You have to be able to just wait it out. And we did. In about 2.5 years, she was a little more regular. And then on to the health history of the puppy. Because they are breeding the dogs typically for certain reasons, be it a show dog or hunting, or our dog was bred mostly for protection-based things. They know the history of the dog and the parents' health and like the grandparents' health. So it's easy to see what hereditary illnesses your dog might have. And through that, you're able to either take preventative measures to ensure that the symptoms are managed, or maybe prevent some type of those things. And then probably the most notable one is the puppy is pretty moldable to the behaviors you want it to have as it's an adult. Typically, you get a puppy from a breeder when it's about 8 weeks old. And starting at that young age, it's easy to have a good trust between you and the dog. So if you're doing, for say, hunting, you want to be able to understand that when you tell your dog a command, it's going to go and do it the way you expect it to. And that's not saying that you can't teach an older dog new tricks. It's just, it's a little easier, and there's more of a trust-based relationship there when it starts at a younger age. Again, the 3 most important pros, I think, of buying from a breeder were the expert advice from the breeder, as well as understanding the health history, and then being able to mold the puppy in the way that you see fit. And then Jake here is going to go into the cons of buying from a breeder.
First of all, if you go to a breeder, there's a few different cons. Firstly, there's a morality of it. So every dog that you buy from a breeder is basically a spot that a dog from a shelter doesn't get to go to, and there's a lot of dogs that don't have a home or just live in a shelter. And while Delaware did become a no-kill state in 2019, all the other states are not. And even though this is a no-kill state, that system does have its downfalls and its drawbacks. So just be mindful of that. Then the health issues. So purebred dogs are a lot more prone to health issues than a mutt or some sort of a mixed breed, because first of all, there's a lot of inbreeding that goes into creating a purebred. So that causes a lot of health problems, like birth defects most commonly, and then susceptibility to diseases, especially like later on in life. And the diseases that a dog would normally get later on, if it goes through a lot of inbreeding, it's going to get a lot sooner. So a dog that could have a lifespan of 10 to 12 years is going to get cut down to 5 to 8 years just because of the inbreeding. Then you got things like pugs. So pugs have been bred over time to have a stubby face, and that's the look that pug owners are going for all the time. That's just what they're known for, which causes a lot of breathing issues for the pug. So you can see right here that its nasal passage is tiny and it's blocked off really badly. And normally you could see that in somebody with sleep apnea who snores a lot. But a pug, because its face is so squashed in, is gonna have that during the, like, while it's awake. So if anybody's ever been around a pug, it's always snoring, even if it's awake and looking at you or like exercising even. So this is just like when they sleep, it gets even worse. So these things are the loudest sleepers you'll ever encounter. And then finally the cost. So if you're gonna adopt a dog from a shelter, most commonly they're gonna just request a donation. It's not even technically buying the dog, you're just gonna donate to the shelter, which is gonna help them get more animals, take care of the animals they already have, and provide health care for maybe the older animals. So the cost is usually somewhere between $70 and $300, which is very manageable, and you should be able to do that if you're going to try and own your own dog. But then when you go to a breeder, the cost generally starts at $300, and it's extremely common for the cost to go well into the thousands. So there's a lot of reasons to avoid the breeder. Now, we're going to go over the shelter portion.
Hi, I'm Jay. I'm going to talk about the pros of adopting dogs from a shelter. So the first pro that you're saving dogs who are put to death. Do something that was stated at $2.7 million in cats are killed annually due to shelters overflowing or not enough adopted homes being offered. The second one is it saves you money. And it typically costs more to adopt a dog from a pet store than a shelter. The third pro is you're more informed on what dog you're planning on adopting. People who work in shelters are more engaged with animals, so they will be able to inform you on anything about you need to know, from the dog's personality to how it lives and so on. And shelters are a place where lost dogs go. So if a pet owner ever lost their dog, shelters are a place plenty of lost dogs are always found and are reunited with their owners. And just a couple cons. Lots of paperwork are required when adopting a dog from a shelter. And they said that more paperwork is required and a lot of personal questions are asked. And the other one is you might not be able to adopt the dog you want immediately. And it said when adopting from a shelter, a waiting period is given due to making sure that the people thinking about considering adopting a dog, they had time to think on it. And this allows the owners to claim the dogs they may have lost.
So in conclusion, like over 2/3 of American households have pets, according to the American Pet Product Association, and over 90 million dogs are kept as pets in America today. So obviously there's pros and cons to both methods, and neither method is 100% correct all the time, and you need to evaluate your situation personally each time. So you need to take into account your own circumstances and situations and evaluate which method you should use best of adoption. Any questions?
So I was hearing you guys talking about putting dogs down. How much does it cost? How much does it cost to put a dog down?
I'm not sure.
I know when you take them to a vet, it's about $200. But I guess in the shelter, the cost of having the pet for longer than, I guess, 30 days it is sometimes, outweighs the cost of just putting them down, unfortunately.
You guys were talking about how expensive it can get buying from a breeder. Like during your research, what was like the most expensive dog that you might have seen?
Have you seen that show Most Expensivest that 2 Chainz is on?
Yeah.
There's like $50,000 pugs, so like, I thought that was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have never adopted a dog before, but if dogs in pet stores or bought from breeders aren't bought, then don't they just get put in shelters? Anyways, like if dogs in pet stores don't get bought, then they just get put in pet store or shelters. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the pets that are in pet stores come from puppy mills, which is the lesser reputable breeder. I wouldn't even count puppy mills as breeders really. But yes, most of them do come from like puppy mills like that, and if they don't get adopted, then they do end up in shelters, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I heard that, so I was just wondering if that's like, it's kind of just like a never-ending cycle.
Yeah,
really.
pretty much.
Yeah, thanks.
So, how can you tell the difference? Because I haven't bought a dog, but I've been looking at to buy one. How can you tell the difference between a reputable breeder and a puppy mill?
A puppy mill, it would be more of quantity over quality. So if you would go to the breeder's house or whatever their establishment is, you want to be making sure that the dogs that they're breeding are being well taken care of. They're not put in any tight cages. You want to make sure that the moms are taken care of, the puppies are happy, and it's not like a tight confined space. You just want to make sure they're basically taking care of their animals instead of just treating them like machines. Pretty much is what you want to look for.
I think puppy mill's usually Amish, right?
I know
I'm
there's a
pretty
lot.
sure the Amish do like puppy mills, so like they're not taking great care of the animals. I don't know. That's just like that's usually how it goes in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Are there any good like websites to look at to buy from breeders?
Not that I can see. I know we found ours through a friend of a friend, which I think is probably the best way if you know somebody who knows a breeder. That way, again, like it's not just online. A database could be easily manipulated. So I think face-to-face interaction is a little better when you're looking for a breeder.
Do you know how long you have to wait until you can buy a puppy?
Typically after 8 weeks, you can get them. I know my aunt, when she brought her golden retrievers, was on a waiting list for like a year and a half before she could get a puppy. But once they're actually born, it's about 8 weeks before you can get them.
Alright, so that's a real thing. Wait, a waiting list?
Yes,
Alright.
Yeah.
I heard that, but I didn't know if that was a real thing.
that's a real thing. My aunt waited for her first puppy about a year, and then the second one about a year and a half.
Alright.
She really wanted a golden retriever. It's her prerogative. Good for her.
What are some shelters in Delaware?
There's the ASPCA, like they talked about, right next to the, I guess, the Royal Farms, and then I don't know. That's just that's like the big one in this county. Like if you're gonna adopt a dog in this county, it's usually there. I know there's like 2 or 3 more, but they're smaller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a risk to adopting dogs? Like I know you said buying from a breeder, you can probably have like a good outlook on like the health issues and like with the parents and everything, but what if you buy a dog from like, or a shelter and it has like health issues down the road?
Yeah, that's just something that you wouldn't be aware of going
Yeah.
into a shelter. So it's something you'd have to consider and just be, vigilant of, what was going on with that.
You said when you adopt a dog from a shelter, you don't have to pay for it sometimes, you just require a donation? Do they require a certain amount? Or?
Yeah, it's different for each one, but usually it's between 70 and 300. So, I mean, it's nowhere near what like a store or a breeder would charge. But I mean, obviously 300 is not cheap, but it's not too bad.
Any questions? Thank you.